Hello, people that like to sand small things. So anyways, I bought this Dspiae ES-A electric sander, and I liked it enough that I bought a second one because they're two different size bits. Off the top of my head, I can't actually remember how big these sanding bits are. So this small one is a 5mm, and then the big one is a 10mm, I assume. Yeah, it's supposed to be around there. One point I would give as advice is the sanding bits, look how long they are. So they tend to stick out like that much. But if you want a lot of control, you want that bit to be as close to your fingertips as possible. So what I did is I took a hacksaw and I cut them in half. This is steel, it's not aluminum. So you need a strong cutting blade. But now, they can fully recess up to this point. One thing I also didn't really care for is the fact that you need to have a tool. So I took the standard tool that it usually stores in the back, cut it down, and this is polymorph plastic. And so it's really easy to undo and tighten with this little thumb-like tool. Alright, so I guess you could use any epoxy and stuff like that as well. Okay, but to be honest with you, I forgot I even own these things. The reason why is a simple $1 glass nanofile does a great job. So this is actually my go-to thing to take nubs off of model parts. I would never trim it this big. Let me find one that's a little bit smaller. Like this nub here. What I like about the glass ones is they're clear. So you can see what you're doing. And also because the openings are round, you can move this way, this way, this way, that way. It doesn't matter which way you move it. The round holes are always cutting the material. So I find this to be very effective. And this is a curved tire. I just move it around, right? It works. And it costs $1. Every now and then you gotta wipe it with your finger, but I don't even clean it with a toothbrush or anything. I just wipe it with my finger. Although that paint in there might be an issue. And then if I really wanted it to be smooth, like say on a Gundam that I'm not gonna paint, these little cheap nail salon files, green on one side and just plain foam on the other, they do a really good job of polishing up this plastic. So I forget what grit this side is. So you see, took off some material and then it polishes it up nicely. I guess I didn't sand enough of that nub off. So I just bought a bulk pack of these things, and that's it. But usually I paint my models, so I don't even bother with this thing. I just use this, and it's great. I've never dropped one. I bought like 5 in case I drop it and it shatters. Okay, but anyways, another issue is this is a rotary sander. Let's try. Orange is 400 grit, so this is the coarsest grit. I gotta focus, hold on, focus on my fingers there. It definitely does the job. But the thing is, you see how like the geometry of your finger, this creating like an arc. I'm gonna exaggerate, right? So you could theoretically arc this and create cut into that material too much. You could obviously use a smaller grit, or technically a higher grit. This blue is 1000 grit, so, or also a slower speed. And it does work. The thing is, it just took like 2 or 3 minutes to do that, right? Whereas this, it's done in like 10 seconds. The reason being is it doesn't take off the majority, it only takes off the nub. But a sanding device will take off anything in its way, right? So this thing kind of self-levels itself. That's another reason why I like it. Yeah, so very, very, very effective. It's strange that I'm promoting the cheapest thing here, but I don't want people wasting money and throwing more garbage into the planet. I do enough of that myself. I'm a hypocrite, and I realize it. Okay, but because this is a sanding motion I can control, I was thinking, well, why not try the Dspiae Reciprocating Sander? Maybe this will be junk as well. I did buy a green one I reviewed, and the plastic things are so flexible, I ended up donating it to a school. I didn't like it. I think it was corded as well. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. Long battery life, takes about 20 minutes to charge for 100 minutes of sanding time with no load. No load though. Still, 20 minutes is really good. Current level, I don't know why there's a cutout here, and this is 100% for the battery level, but it's just mimicking it. Okay, so this thing is called the ES-A. That's the part. And inside of this, we should have these parts here. This is key, self-adhesive sandpaper, because I'm too lazy to put double-sided tape on stuff. As usual from this company, the packaging is really nice. So if you're going to give a gift away, to someone that loves making models, Dspiae is a pretty good brand to go with, because you don't look like a cheap person. You're giving them something that really looks nice, the presentation of this. So, but unfortunately, that's a waste of cardboard. It's a sleeve, which coincidentally is protecting another sleeve. So all this nice packaging is just garbage. It's unnecessary for me. I mean, I had to buy these two boxes. Alright, so it tells you which sandpapers should go on which bits. The rounded that way. There's actually quite an assortment of bits here. Interesting. Before start, choose the head, right? Select paper, power on, click function once. Let me just hit this. Hold on. Alright, so I just read through it. You basically have to, there's 3 speeds, and you have to click the speeds within 3 seconds. After that 3 seconds, the next time you click it, it'll turn itself off. So, and then if you want, you can also turn on or off the LED light. But it doesn't really bother me. So, what is this now? Alright, so reading this, apparently the lights can be like a lightsaber or a disco. If you want to party while you're sanding, you get all these light effects. Charging instructions, it's going to pulse while charging, and then it's going to go solid green when it's finished. And then it also notes that if you're going to plug the cable in, the sander will automatically stop working. So I'm not sure if it can actually function while the cable is plugged in. We have some tolerances here. The thing moves back and forth 2.5 millimeters, plus or minus that. Oscillating, maybe that's left and right, yeah, tolerance. So it's 1/10 of a millimeter, not bad. What else? It charges by USB. Those sanding bits are made of nylon, which is a stronger plastic, more flexible than ABS, which shatters. Okay, there's the sanding measurements, and then here the pressure you can have is basically a maximum of 430. That's what 3 lights will turn green, saying that's how much pressure you're putting down. I assume anything over that, yeah, it's going to shut itself off. And then the 3 speeds, there you go. Strokes per minute, I guess. Okay, so that's nice, but that could have just been on a piece of paper instead. So a nice box. It's got magnets to keep the lid down. And then it's got some stickers if you want to label certain heads with the certain sanding grits. Nice bags here for the sandpaper. Okay, so like the round things, these are color coded, which is great. So it goes up to 1000, and 180 is a very coarse grit. Too coarse for making models, in my opinion. That's the kind of stuff you'd use on like wood. Although maybe I'll show the worst and best scenarios, because I can always just sand down a runner. And then are there 2? I guess there's 2 packs of this. Do these look the same? No, they don't look the same. So these are different for different bits. Yeah, okay. So they're different bits. Okay. Speaking of those bits, let's take a look at those. So naturally you can have them all nicely arranged, and then once you find your particular sanding grit that you like for these bits, that's when you slap on the sticker. Boy, or if you're crazy, you would buy multiple sets of these bits, which I think you can buy separately, and just have a sanding pad on each one of them for quick changes. It does have a cable with a little, you know, cable tie. And then here's the thing itself. So this comes in this bag, probably to keep it from getting scratched. So I guess this said this is plastic, and but it's got a metallic finish on it. And then it does have this clear head, so you know what bit is. Well, I actually turned it on. So be careful. It's not sticking out, but obviously you saw it's quite easy to turn on. I don't know if this should be twisted or just pulled. Okay, just pulled. I'm gonna just go with like a flat. Here we go. So this one being pretty big, or even this bigger, I'm gonna put the big grit on the big pad. Alright, so the 180. Nope. Nope. This. Okay. Not too difficult to put on. Probably want to press it there. Alright, so that's 180. So this one is a lot smaller, and most likely I'll use this size most for nubs. I'm debating 400 and 600. 400 is coarse enough that it's going to take it off fast, but it's still smooth enough that you could spray paint over 400. Ideally, before you paint something, you'd get up to 600. And then you want to avoid the higher grits because the paint won't stick. 1000 is actually kind of almost like polishing stuff, starting the polishing process. Okay, so we need this one. So I gotta find I'm gonna go with 400 on this medium size one here. Alright. Lastly, we have this very thin one, and just for experimentation purposes, I'm gonna put a 1000 grit on this. You know, maybe the reciprocating action will let you use a very fine grit and have less of a chance of removing too much material. So you'll see the die cut wasn't perfect on this particular piece. Alright, well, I gotta say, putting on those pieces of sandpaper is pretty easy. Okay, let's check the charging on this thing. See if this got any. I guess I need this cable. So it definitely wasn't 100% charged, which makes sense. It has to be in storage at a warehouse for a while. And it's got this funky lightsaber-esque thing. I am going to try to turn it on. No. So essentially you cannot run the sander while it's charging, but on this one you can. Alright, anyways, I trust it's got some power to get through this test. Let's put on the super coarse one. And there's a D shape to this, by the way. And looking at the shape of this, there's a D shape to this. So one would have to assume the flat spot of this goes here. And it does. The bits themselves are marked, but it's just molded in, so it's kind of hard to see, right? You might, and unfortunately they're not molded in deeply. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking of adding some paint in there and then sanding it smooth, but I don't know if you can because the crevices of the lettering is so thin. Might have to just use a paint pen or something, or a sticker. A label maker sticker would work fine, actually. I'll do that later. Alright, so this is 400 grit, right? So it's pretty rough, I think. Yeah, that is super coarse. So weight, I don't know. But you can use this for other things than models, I assume. Wood carving and whatever crafts projects you have. So here we have a rounded tip. So let's just, this is speed 1. I don't know, it actually didn't take off much because I'm not pressing down too hard. You know, hold on, I gotta change the angle here. I don't know if I like this button. I don't like having to hold it. I think it'd just be easier if you just click through it 4 times. But anyways, I need to change the angle. I can't even see what I'm doing. So, alright, now I'm looking down at my camera screen. What I want to look at is the load meter. I don't really see much of a load meter, right? Where's the 3 dots? I stopped the motor. I don't know. You can kind of get an idea how much pressure you should apply. You know, you basically want the thing to reciprocate back and forth, but if you press too hard, you can clearly feel and see it doesn't want to reciprocate as much. So that's just going to take some experience. And, you know, it did just turn off. Oh, because I waited 3 seconds. So you got to wait 3 seconds to to turn off automatically. You notice it stopped in the outward position, but well, I gotta say, 400 is not a big concern. I thought it was gonna blast through, but that was at the low speed. So let me try now. I'm gonna set to the highest speed. 3 clicks. Alright. It's still not taking off much plastic. Okay. It's actually much slower, I think, than the rotary one as far as taking plastic off. Look at the load meter again. I think that was 2, yeah. And that's 3 LEDs. It's kind of hard to tell the LEDs. The opaque plastic here makes it difficult to see the segments of LEDs. 1, 2, 3 LEDs. There could be 4 or 5 LEDs in that slot. Okay, so after 3 seconds it is very easy to turn off. So whether I was pressing hard or not very hard, you'll notice it barely went through the dome of these runners. I am a little curious now. This is also 400 grit supposedly. This one's kind of worn out, so let's do a fair test. I could push it through just to get the adhesive on there, and then I just pry it out the back. Alright, so that's a brand new 400. And let's just see this rounded dome. That's the highest speed. Put it out to the outside. Look how fast this thing goes through. That dome is totally gone. So if you want to rip off material as fast as you can, it's this rotary thing. Look at that. That's so fast it's melting the plastic. And what's nice is it didn't actually clog up the bit or the sandpaper. So I guess it might be a case to own both of these, but in general, making models, you don't need to blast through, plastic. You would use a cutting bit instead, and just use a cutting tool. Okay, so what's nice is I'm not too fearful that this thing is gonna blast through my model and totally destroy it. So we're gonna try this little nub here. This is slow speed. Okay, so almost no difference. I'm gonna go to the highest speed again. Well, so it barely did anything, and this is the coarsest grit, so that's not very promising for the finer grits. Boy, that's really strange. It would also, I think, be nice to have a speed meter shown. I like how this one tells you your speed 1, 2, 3, and then the load meter is the additional ones. But this doesn't really tell you that speed, and it's kind of hard to tell between speed 1 and speed 2, the difference. All right, I'm gonna try something foolish and actually go against the grain like this, but it's such a big bit. This is where I run the risk of sanding off too much of the actual surface that I'm trying to preserve. I'm on the second speed now. Okay, so I can't see what I'm doing. Alright, I was getting close to the end, so now we have a very short nub. So now we're going to go to that, what was it, a 400 grit, I think? And now, getting towards this. Fastest speed. Okay. So that worked pleasantly well. It just took a long time. So if you don't apply too much pressure, you're not going to take out too much material. But clearly you can see I sanded that perfectly smooth surface that was there before. Alright, I'm going to... I guess just try to take this nub down with this medium grit. Alright, I didn't want to destroy the surface. I want to try the smoothest one now. You notice, I'm moving the part because I'm basically trying to, clean out the dust that builds up in the sandpaper. So I figure if I move it around, I have more of the grit cutting into the plastic. Alright, so now we have the 1000, which is, historically to me, would be starting a polishing process. One thing I'm also noticing is I want my finger to be here, but you can't do that, right? So, but this thing is so long that you're forced to be pretty far away from the actual area you're sanding. So controlling it feels a little difficult. Maybe it just takes some practice, but... I apologize if some of it's going out of focus. I'm not looking through my camera screen. I'm just looking at it with my own eyes. Let's see if we can just a wipe of that, and it seems clean again. It seems okay. But this 1000 clearly isn't polishing. It's not smooth, right? Whereas traditionally I would probably do this, which gets it rough, but and then the white. Now you can see it's shiny, right? Boy, so right now it seems it does its job, but it seems very slow compared to a $1 nanofile. Maybe curved surfaces. Because I know this thing is slow, I'm going to put 180 in all these other bits. Let's see how these things function. So if you want to have a curved channel, sadly the sandpaper didn't cover that whole arc, so you might want to, the second time around, you'd figure that out and put it on a different way. Alright, we also have this V channel. Now this I could see as being useful. Let's see, this one is coming from here apparently. So the V, I need to use this one apparently. Again, I feel like the paper is not long enough. So you probably want to center the sandpaper on the bit first, like that, and then push it down if you want it to be even. But boy, the sandpaper is so thick, it was overcoming the adhesive. Maybe you just gotta press it really tight. We'll see if that peels up in a moment, but right now it's on. Okay, this guy could also see is useful, getting into a corner. This should be obvious, a triangle head, right? Alright, that was nice and easy to put on. Then we have a big curved arc here, which is back to this squarish one, and it's this giant mega piece in the realm of these bits. Not bits. I'm going to center it this time, hopefully learn. But coincidentally, or oddly, this one actually is the proper width. So you don't need to center, you can start at the edge. Alright. Now this one here is a curved at the this face here. So that is also on this 90-degree cut thing. And I guess it's this one. So this one I am going to start up here, since that's the important part of this particular bit. And I'm going to wrap it down. Oh, you can even go further. So this is actually longer than the bit itself, so it'd probably be advisable to start at the back and then roll it forward and have the extra go over like that. Alright, so I'm going to take this big arced one and so let's try this one out. I see a good test spot here. So this is the inside of a engine bay, so it doesn't matter if I mess this up. See that B1, hopefully? The arc is too big. So that arc is too big. In fact, I gotta lower the camera again. I can't see what I'm doing. Where's the small arc? So you can see it got into that curved surface, and with enough work you'd eventually sand out all that text. And I gotta say, for 180 grit, that sure as heck doesn't look like 180 grit. The reciprocating action of this seems to create a much smoother surface than if I was hand sanding. Let me give an example. If I was just hand sand with 180, you have this smooth pink surface, right? You see, that's what I'm accustomed to seeing. But when this thing is in this machine, it's, I guess, I don't know. I guess just because it's more consistent, it feels like a smoother surface, whereas this, you know, there's a lot of variation because my fingers are working, I don't know, it's just, I'm not a machine. So, it's interesting. It makes the sandpaper smoother than by using the same sandpaper by hand. Right? Yeah. I just put a lot of time into that, but I do feel this is a more consistent surface, which logically makes sense being a machine. Okay, well, that's a plus for this thing. Let's try this 90-degree thing. I could definitely see myself using this bit because you very often have these parts like this, and you see the mold split right in the middle of it. So there's a 90-degree corner here, and that is also showing a little bit of flash. Trying to find a good spot. Well, I guess we'll just have to do this. Or maybe... It's really small. Alright, let's just try this. I'm going to do the low setting. Yeah, low setting maybe not so great. So in this case, you know, choosing 180 grit, it's rough. But I'm pretty confident if you had a higher grit, it might be able to get both, see? It did sand that surface and that surface. But I think the issue is maybe because this 180 grit, it doesn't have a sharp corner. This is 1000 grit. Yeah, this is way too big, but it's fine. So now, this being a fine grit, it should be able to break over and create a sharper 90 degree maybe. That's what I'm theorizing because the grit is not as high. Okay. Let's try in this corner. Okay. I did sand both. Obviously, with a little more time, it would have done a better job. Alright, so that's actually pretty good. Didn't get the very interior. I don't think you can create a perfect 90 degree corner with sandpaper, so, but if you've got a molding flash, this might be an effective tool, this 90 degree thing. Alright, interesting. So we tried that, we tried the two curved things. The last one is this. I'm getting into like something. Oh no, we still have the point one as well. So historically, when I see a parting line on a concave surface, I just take this hobby knife and I scrape it out. But you can actually see how I flattened out some of that surface because it's a flat edge. This is also a flat edge, of course, but let's try it out if I can make this a little bit smoother. I'm going to apply more pressure now, try to get into that plastic. It is definitely going to take some practice figuring out the pressure points for every grit. Okay, well, alright. And then this is a flat. Take that flash off there. Okay, I guess that works alright. Honestly, I don't think that this is probably one of the least likely bits I'm going to use. But I guess if you're trying to taper off, there just aren't many model parts that have a flat and then a transition like this that I found in my experience. So, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to use this too much, but I guess it's nice that it's there. Alright, so the very last one is the little corner thing. I guess we'll go back to this again. So we'll try to take off this flash here and go up to this corner. That was actually very fast. So obviously this is 180 grit, so if I went with the higher grit, that would be pretty smooth, I think. But I think it did a decent job considering how rough this grit is. Alright, but I don't know, off the top of my head I'm not sure if I'll use this particular bit often either. For me, I think most often I'm just going to use the flat bits. Possibly these two rounded bits. This one, although it does work, you have to have good control, and you'll never get the exact inner corner because the sandpaper is always going to have a roundness to it no matter how smooth the sandpaper is, because you're literally folding over paper, right? So I don't know about that one so much. I guess it's nice that it does have a lot of bits in general, and it seems like a decent amount of sanding paper to experiment with, and you can buy the sanding packs separately, so you can also buy the bits separately, I'm pretty sure, as well. I saw listings for that. I don't know what my conclusion is right now. Right now, I will conclude that the thing does work, and it's very lightweight. Ergonomically, I do wish maybe they were able to shorten this down somehow. But I guess if this wasn't this long, it would have that more slop in its oscillation. So that it's very easy to put the bits on and off, so that's good. And you'll notice none of them fell off, which is interesting. I think it's because right here you have an open circle, and that has a ledge that's grabbing this channel right here. That's what I assume is how it's designed. So I suppose the only issue is the interface of this is a lot worse than this. I find this interface far more intuitive and easy to understand. I don't need to have a disco light show on my sander. So, and also you can't run it while it's charging. But I guess the question is, are you going to be sanding hundreds of parts at one time? Then it might become an issue. I never do, really. So most of my model kits contain less than 500 parts. This one is literally, I think, like a 20 part kit, or very few parts. Alright, well, I guess that's it for today. If anyone has any comments to share with other people, their experiences and stuff, please do. I'm not a professional reviewer. I bought this with my own money. I just like to look at new gadgets and hopefully make my model making a little easier. So we'll have to see if this shows up in some of my build videos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time around.